of success stories getting started all over Alberta. And in the heartlands of the countryside, times for many have never been better. When the rodeo cowboys come to town, it's easy to forget about the chores back home. Since the first settlers came from Europe barely 100 years ago, the cornerstone of Alberta's economy has been agriculture. People like these took a rough ride to success and built themselves the biggest cooperatively owned and operated gas distribution system in the world. Success in agriculture still revolves around the old truths that if you want something done right, you best do it yourself. And when you start something, you finish it, no matter what it takes. Moving ahead, the story of the Farmers Gas Company, the Federation of Alberta Gas Cooperatives, an alliance of community-owned gas companies serving 150,000 Albertans, people with a job to do feeding Canadians with our renewable resources. Improved efficiency has been the farmers' concern since the first harvest. Getting natural gas from a few feet below the topsoil to our homes became a crusade for a better quality of life in the country. Winters in Alberta have always been a serious business, and from the days of chopping wood, stoking coal, and trucking in fuel oil or propane, staying warm has been an expensive exercise in time and money. Today, with natural gas, producers like Don Tanis can spend more of their time and money on developing their operations. Each spring, Don saves more calves in his gas-heated calving shed.
We're in a ranching area that is far flung between the different ranches, and pretty well all of them now have put in natural gas, and they're all using it. In our calving shed, which we built, we have used natural gas for not only for heat. We turn the temperature to 70, it's there. In the early spring when it's cold, our mortality rate has dropped consistently by the use of it. Using gas keeps the stress down with the calves after they're born. We have heat immediately. The calves are in a room where it's 70 degrees, even no matter if it's 20 below outside. Of course, this has got to save calves.
And on Thursday, steers traded from 72.85 to 76.15. Considerable movement upward.
A greenhouse operation in the foothills was only a dream for Henry Peterson until the formation of the Cochrane Lake Gas Co-op made it possible. So he packed up the kids, left the construction company behind, and moved to the foothills to raise exotic flowers.
The first year I thought I might as well fill up all the spare area with bedding out plants and see what I can do with the neighbors and people out in the area. And it turned out so well that it was only a year later I had to build another greenhouse, and I don't believe I would have built another one if it hadn't been for the gas.
For some producers, their ambitions in agriculture were simply impossible before the availability of natural gas. Back in the 1920s, established international utility companies moved in and began to deliver natural gas from Alberta's backyard into the cities. The companies weren't interested in serving the countryside, where people lived too far apart, where miles of pipe may be needed to serve but one customer. It wasn't profitable enough. It couldn't be done, they said. But scattered groups of stubborn farmers began to do it anyway. Men like Jack Fears, Stan Jones, and Tom Adams took matters into their own hands.
System for the farmers. We were purely exploring the possibilities. Stan had felt that he was being badly abused by the local utilities who thought they had a franchise for this district but really weren't, had no official function. No. And the only estimate of cost he had was somewhat about 4 times what I told him it should cost to put gas in his house. And he was contesting that. At this meeting, when all I could do was say, I think it's going to cost a few $500-600 to put gas in your house, and someone from Canadian Western leaped up and said that was ridiculous. For one thing, they wouldn't let a bunch of farmers start working with gas in any event, and if they did, it was going to cost far more than any of them could afford, and they wouldn't be allowed to utilize the gas. And I think that had about 125 very angry farmers. Yeah. All of a sudden, they felt if they could use a diesel engine on a tractor, they could certainly use a gas furnace.
Building a pocket-sized local utility company became a challenging project for the whole community. They were building the first ever farmer-owned gas co-op. They called it Mayota, and by Christmas 1963, they were serving their first dozen families.
It was a very mild celebration, but we were sure tickled pink to think that we were on the way. Yeah. We were burning gas, and when we got home, the house would be just as warm as it was when we left it. This was something that didn't happen with the old cook stove and the coal furnace.
Jack Fears took the news of the successful co-op to the next group of impatient farmers down the road, to Tilly Rolling Hills, where he met the man their idea needed next. His name was Helmut Entrup, and he would become an active early president of the newly formed Federation of Alberta Gas Cooperatives. As Director of Member Services for Unifarm, he had the support he needed to travel the province, driving home the idea of a do-it-yourself gas company. Today, he's Alberta's rural ombudsman, the farmer's advocate.
We were speaking then to cabinet ministers in the then government. We also were speaking to the opposition members, and I learned to know Dr. Horner, and I spoke to him about the possibility of bringing natural gas to all the rural areas of Alberta, and we were on the same wavelength immediately, and he agreed that it was a fantastic idea and let's push it. And so, to my surprise, I found that in the platform of the Conservative Party.
In 1971, the Progressive Conservatives ended 36 years of social credit government and set out to enact their campaign platform. On the left, Henry Tomlinson, president of the St. Anne Gas Co-op, northwest of Edmonton. On the right, Bruce Palmer, their engineer. They came to see the new Minister of Agriculture, the Deputy Premier, Dr. Hugh Horner.
Not too bad. Bruce? Dr. Horner.
Right in, fellas. Down.
The sales and design of their new co-op had run aground. The established utility company was offering cut rates to some farmers inside the co-op's franchise area.
Up to 85%.
If the young co-op couldn't have exclusive rights in their franchise, then they would have a patchwork system too expensive to build. Their co-op was being designed to bring gas to everyone, regardless of where they lived, for the same price.
Real problem. We have to, if at all possible, get the government guarantee increased to 85%. And I also know from experience in the past that it's going to take a long time to negotiate a gas supply contract with the two suppliers in the area.
Well, in that case, Bruce, if they're a common carrier, they'll have to sell gas to the co-ops, and we'll take those steps that are necessary to see that it's done.
Okay, Doc, the other thing that we need is a franchise area that will guarantee us that we can serve all the customers in there and stop this raiding of the customers along the pipelines that are easy to serve. And we'd like you to see what we can do about that.
Well, Henry, a better financing thing is obviously going to help you keep your customers and sign up new ones. The other thing that I'd like to look into is see if we can't put a freeze on the utility companies creaming the rural people in rural Alberta, and we'll see what we can do with a couple of phone calls.
Dr. Horner moved on their requests immediately. In April 1973, embodied in position paper number 11, the government committed itself to helping farmers help themselves.
Back up, and then we'll get the winch line out across that wire.
With the government policy behind them, groups of farmers who had been waiting in the wings for years moved into action. Co-ops were formed. Volunteers gave way to engineers. And in a few months, construction companies were on the move all over Alberta.
Oh, it's about a couple of 100 yards, I guess.
This time the obstacle was a marsh. Tomorrow it might be a highway, lake, or a railway crossing. With this sudden and unprecedented demand, there were shortages of everything: equipment, pipe, materials, and especially experienced personnel. Some co-ops were luckier than others.
Oh, just a moment, please, okay? Thanks. Some messages for you.
The problem was that there had never been anything of this scope undertaken anywhere else in the world before.
George, how'd construction go?
Very well, Nick.
It was like they were pioneers again. And as new problems surfaced here, events elsewhere in the world were conspiring to dramatically alter the world economy. In October 1973, during the Hebrew holiday Yom Kippur, Syria, Egypt, and Jordan attacked Israel. The Israelis were caught by surprise, but 8 months later, they occupied territory in 3 Arab countries. The effect of the conflict led to an Arab oil embargo against North America. This first energy crisis caught the world by surprise and precipitated a great round of inflation in industrialized countries. In Alberta, gas prices shot up, and for some co-op members, the cost of gas would triple from the day they signed the contract to the day construction began. The new suppliers were overcommitted, and the previously disinterested utility companies stockpiled the pipe we needed. A pattern of leaks traced to one type of resin sent construction crews backwards, replacing bad pipe. Each delay cost thousands of dollars. What had looked so easy at the beginning was becoming a burden. Morale was low, and frustration was like a bad seed in everything they undertook.
Mr. Chairman,
Clearly it was time to get together and exchange ideas and experiences, to rub elbows and learn from each other. At the annual meetings and trade fair, members decided what was needed to make the program go. Recommendations were assembled, and a regional board of directors were elected to represent the Federation. They negotiated increased government support, improved industry standards, and equitable insurance rates. Bad contractors were weeded out, and we vastly improved our own business practices.
More than ever,
As the months passed, the tide shifted. They seemed to be winning just by getting on with it. As they improved their performance, the available technology improved. Instead of glue and lengths of pipe, flexible pipe was plowed in, over 35,000 miles of it. New resins and pipe stocks were developed. New factories were built. And after 6 years, this new market would come to represent $250 million invested between the co-ops and the government. For years, Herb Warner was away from home, out on the road explaining how the new Department of Utilities and Telephones was set up to implement the gas program. Herb and Assistant Deputy Minister Doug Brooks are two of the originals from the active early days of Minister Roy Farron.
Yeah, well, we have to get it out as soon as possible.
It's sure different than the early years. The program is pretty well advanced towards where we thought we'd get to. as time goes along, we've sure changed the department. Now we've got a big department with over 100 people. Once the capital costs and the grant amounts are sorted out, then the customer counts have to be coordinated with the construction section approvals, the as-built drawings, and all the other information they get. This lets the business advisors work with cash flows and to be sure that the co-op gets the support they're entitled to under the program and can run their utility business from then on.
In 1976, OPEC and a tough winter in the U.S. contributed to another round of energy inflation. Again in Alberta, it looked like we wouldn't be able to afford our own natural resources. The provincial government responded with a rebate policy. Gas exported from Alberta would float with world prices, while rebates would stabilize gas prices here, protecting Albertans from arbitrary increases.
Rural gas co-ops throughout Alberta, what a really great pleasure it has been for me at this point in my life to have the opportunity to be a part of a real success story in rural Alberta.
For the gas co-ops, it meant that they could plan ahead with a resource they could count on. The government assured them of a constant 30-year gas supply. Even when you're the 81st co-op to flare up, it's a proud time for the individual volunteers who have worked to make it happen.
We have, and finally, after 4 years and a lot of frustrations, a lot of long evenings and a lot of long days away from home, we sometimes...
The Northeast Gas Co-op has all the right-of-ways they need. 2/3 of the community have paid their deposit, and then it's official.
Thanks very much, Ron. Bill Swiderski, members of the Northeast Gas Co-op. Ladies and gentlemen, it's really a great pleasure for me to be here at the Alexander Community Center. I understand that there are another 1,400 families anxiously waiting the opportunity to burn natural gas, and I know that this co-op will serve these families because of the kind of dedication that you've shown thus far.
With an approved design, they can move on to the construction phase. The biggest part of doing the job is getting the right-of-ways. To date, over 90,000 right-of-ways have been negotiated. As this co-op grows, it joins a network of independent co-ops recycling their energy dollars back into their communities, where they employ local tradespeople and boost the economy.
Hi Dan, how's it going? Pretty good. How are you doing? Pat, could I have you type up 2 crossing agreements for me here?
Keeping track of those dollars and cents is Reg Olson's job. He's manager of the Crossroads Cooperative in Innisfail.
Judy, could I have a look at that letter you typed up to notify the new members that their lien notes are to be sent in for registration?
Sure, I've got that right here.
Thank you.
Once the co-op system is in place, he has to make sure it's run efficiently.
Mr. Henday phoned in, and his account number is 42.
They've got to compete to secure their position as a progressive energy company.
Well, I'm pleased to see as many of you out as are tonight. We'll call the meeting to order with the minutes of the last board meeting. Ken?
Easements on about 40 quarter sections are needed in the replow area.
These men are local farmers, volunteers responsible for overseeing budgets that have stretched from ideas and small change into millions of dollars. Elected to the co-op's board of directors, they represent the interests of their communities at the monthly meeting.
Right now, all the government approvals through for about 130 miles of replacement, and the members are being contacted that the construction is about to start.
Like everyone they represent, these men own part of the co-op, and they all share the costs and the benefits equally.
I feel that farming is a business, just like any other business.
Dieter Fruhelm is a successful hog
In
producer.
the wilderness, in the middle of nowhere. First of all, we were sort of over the barrel with propane companies. They could charge pretty well what they wanted. And today we feel we're running our own business, the co-op, which I'm a member as well as a director of. I feel I took matters in my own hands. And at least I know what it's costing us as a co-op, and I know what it's cost me as an individual consumer. And so I don't feel I'm being skinned anymore.
Like the successful producer, the gas co-ops have to be able to expand, and to do that, they need a variety of customers. This pelleting plant exports alfalfa and peat moss to the U.S. and Japan. Natural gas saves bees in the winter, and Alberta has become Canada's leading honey producer. Gas runs the ice maker and keeps the community hall warm. The Hutterites enjoy a relatively simple lifestyle, devoted to God and their strong communal society. Although they do without many of our modern conveniences, they are quick to welcome changes which improve their operation, and traditionally, they've been among the first to sign up.
Salute's looking pretty good. Yes.
Gas co-ops are just extensions of the partnerships that exist amongst the family on any farm, no matter what size it is.
Come on, Cheryl, and eat dinner. Do you want to say grace first, please, Cheryl?
God is great, God is good. Let us thank him for the food we eat. Amen.
Okay, everybody, pitch in.
Would you like some potatoes, Angela?
Every farm is a cooperative. The farmer depends on his wife and children, his workmates and supporters.
Well, we'll try, but the haying is going to be pressing about that time.
A few years ago, farmers wondered if there would be anyone around to leave their farms too. Their young people were leaving the country for opportunities in the city. Rural Alberta enjoys all the conveniences, and towns and villages are quickly growing up. Today, 1 in every 3 Albertans works in agriculture, and nowhere does opportunity in agriculture ring a more familiar note than in the Peace River District. With short summers and lots of rain, grain producers here can't leave their crops on the field to dry, so they use the noisy but popular gas-run grain dryers. A fan forces warm air through the dryer, enabling peace farmers to grow many of the same crops as their colleagues to the south. Grain dryers have taken a lot of worry out of harvest time. They can relax and have no fears about late summer rains or an early frost. 1,000 miles southeast, down by the American border, the last thing farmers think about is getting too much rain. This is dry country. Less than 8 inches of moisture a year. The cash crops in this once infamous Dust Bowl depend on gas-powered irrigation.
Hi, kids.
on, eh?
Looking back on it, I think there's a great deal of satisfaction in the accomplishment that has been achieved. We're going to have a plant that's going to be in the neighborhood of $5 million, serving between 500 and 600 customers, and I think that is a great deal of satisfaction.
Well, she's a three-quarter sister to him. She comes from the same place, from that
Time. Time and how we spend it. And who we spend it with. Maybe that's the greatest benefit of natural gas in the country. It gives us a few more moments with family and friends on a Saturday afternoon. Alberta's gas co-ops are run by people working together, helping each other. There's hope that this tradition will continue long into our children's future. The Alberta Gas Co-ops, moving ahead with modern agriculture.